Listen to the Vibes, hosted by Coyote Knight. Listen in for some positivity and good times. The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes broadcast network. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I have Mr. Scott Aaron here with me, and I'm tell you what, this guy is so interesting, and he's got a great story to tell, and I think you might actually learn something. But before we get started, I'd like to get to know Mr. Aaron a lot better. So tell us about you.
Well, Kyle, thank you again for having me here. It's an honor and a privilege, and just grateful for the opportunity. And yeah, you know, what I teach is human connection. So when someone asks a little bit about me, it's my job to really get people to know me as quickly as they can in a very short amount of time, having never seen or met me before. So I was born and raised in Philadelphia, lived there all my life up until about a month ago. And myself and my future wife, we moved to New Jersey to be closer to our families. My 7-year-old son and his mom are in the New Jersey area as well. So we kind of wanted to be closer to everyone. And prior to that, I spent a 18-year career as a health and wellness professional, as a gym owner, personal trainer, and sports nutritionist. Did some bodybuilding, did some powerlifting. And the way that I got into that, which you and I were talking a little bit about in the pre-show, is I always share with people that there are obstacles that we all need to overcome in life. And I always talk about these brain tattoo moments that we go through, whether it's a tragedy or whether it's an accomplishment, but whether it's good or bad, something always positive comes from something. And when I was 18 and a half, my father was sentenced to 24 to 36 months in federal prison for insurance fraud. And at the time, he had left the company where this had happened and started a fitness club that was failing in downtown Philadelphia, and it was turned over to me. So at 18 and a half, I had to learn how to be a leader. I had to learn how to run a business. I had to learn how to manage going to college full-time and running a business full-time as a teenager, and I fell in love with the profession. I jokingly tell people that from that moment on, I became psychologically unemployable. I've never had a boss. I've only worked for myself, and I grew a lot. And you know, the gym grew from about 300 members to close to 1,200 by the time my father got home. We ended up opening up another location about a year after he came home, and then in 2003, we were offered $1 million by another family to buy both, which we sold it. So at 24, I became a millionaire, trained for just about a year, at that location, helping them manage it. And then at the end of 2004, early 2005, we opened our third and final location. And because my parents didn't have the monetary means nor the credit to open this new gym, everything was put into my name, which I didn't really know what that meant at the time. But 4 years later, I did, because I was $1.5 million in liability debt. So again, it was another hand that I was dealt. And between 2009 and 2015, I was married and divorced twice. The second marriage left me with one of the greatest gifts, which is my now 7.5-year-old little boy, Taylor. Nice. But also it allowed me to get emotionally mature enough to actually attract the right person into my life, which I am getting married to my future wife, Nancy, later this year. But additionally, it allowed me to understand that I had a bigger dream. You know, in 2013, about 2 years prior to that, I started doing network marketing, which is a form of online marketing. And I was focused on the health and wellness industry since that's what I did. And I started understanding leveraged and residual income, which I was able to create within 2 years that matched my regular income that was trading time for dollars as a trainer. And I kind of saw the light. But the big thing was the gym was kind of standing in my way. It was my father's dream to have health clubs. It wasn't mine. I adopted my father's dream because I had to support the family. But my real dream was really living life on my own terms. But The gym was standing in my way. I had pulled some paperwork that was a little unsettling, and it was the lease of the gym, which had me as guarantor. And for those that don't know what that means, when you own a business, if you're the guarantor of that lease, whether that business fails or succeeds, you are financially liable for every dollar that's owed. And at that time, it was an additional $450,000. At that time, I asked my father to leave the gym and break partnership. He didn't argue. There was no fight. We didn't talk for about a year and a half, but we have since patched things up, and we're back to father and son the way that it always should have been. Then I was faced with another difficult decision, and I was sitting in with my accountant, my financial advisor, and my lawyer. And we were just going over some options because the gym was losing about $2,000 a month. I had now a flourishing coaching practice teaching human connection on LinkedIn and a flourishing online wellness practice. But this gym was just holding me back. All my money was being funneled back in to this gym just to keep it afloat. And my lawyer said, listen, because you're personal guarantor, there's one way out, and how you can literally start living life on your own terms, and that's to file for personal bankruptcy. It's the only way you can get out from under this gym. And when I heard the word bankruptcy, I didn't hear my life is over. I heard my life is about to begin, because that was going to be my opportunity, Kyle, to literally take the bull by the horns and go in the direction that I wanted to go in. So on July 1st of 2016, almost 4 years ago, I filed for personal bankruptcy. The end of that month, I closed the gym and never went back. And long story short, my life truly has never been the same.
So let me see if I can word this correctly. When you're faced with that situation where it seems like you're about to go under, do you think that's when a lot of people find their motivation?
I think at times, yes. You know, I know for a fact and for certain that there's a solution to every problem. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that solution doesn't look pretty. It could be pretty messy. But a decision has to be made in order to have something change in your life. Because I kept thinking about, even with what we're going on right now with this pandemic, if I never did that, and I scratched and clawed with that gym even going through till today, I'd be out of business. I would have to close my gym. I couldn't train people anymore. So everything happens on purpose. Nothing happens by accident. So I think that the universe, God, higher power, whatever you believe in, puts things in front of you for a reason. There's a lesson to be learned. And I've learned a lot of lessons, and I attribute that to the success that I always continue to have, because I always find a way to bounce back better.
So if you're looking at the big picture as far as people go, what percentage in your mind do you think are those that decide to persevere and those that just want to give up?
I don't think there's an exact number, but what I do know is there's two choices. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people that the 6 inches between your ears will either make you or break you. And to your point, it's a 50-50 shot.
Right.
You either decide to change, something changes, but when you change nothing, nothing changes. I think a lot of people's decision making rests on the way that they were brought up.
True.
You know, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. I grew up in a forward-thinking household. But just remember this, Kyle. Our history can always be changed with a decision. So no matter how you were brought up, you know, money doesn't grow on trees, and, you know, money is dirty, and all of those things that we're fed as kids, right? That they live imprints. We carry that around with us. But it's up to us to change that verbiage, to change that language, to change our legacy and our lineage. So in my opinion, it's 50-50. Half of the people are going to do something about it. Half of the people are going to live in the problem and not in the solution.
Well, exactly. I don't know if you're familiar with Formula 409 and the story behind it.
No.
Well, do you know why they call it Formula 409?
I do not.
Because the first 408 tries, the formula was not correct. And the 409th, it was. So it's just a matter of, are you going to persevere? Are you going to keep going? or are you just going to say, I can't do this? You know, say, I was telling you before, I turned 50 this year, and I'm not exactly where I want to be in this life. I could just give up and, you know, just live off the government if I so choose, but my choice is I want to move forward. Why do you why do you think that is there just like something in your genes that's just saying, hey, you got to do this, or is it your environment? I mean, I think the environment is an excuse myself.
Yeah, I think it's an intuitive thing. You know, what I've learned is that um, we can succumb or rise above anything that we want. And, you know, I don't think there's a perfect picture of the perfect life. I think everyone is perfectly imperfect the way they are. But I know I want certain things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I want my son to see a father who's present and who's positive and who's available and who's fun and is not stressed out. Because again, we pass that to all those that are around us.
Oh yeah, they're going to feed off of that.
And they know, like, if you think your kids don't know when something's bothering you, I mean, they know, and you can hide it all you want. But I was actually, funny that you brought this up. I was talking to a dear friend of mine, Tracy O'Malley, and Tracy she has an amazing podcast, but very successful, 7-figure business owner. I mean, Tracy O'Malley is like the epitome of just turning your excuses into reasons and living the ideal life. She's got 2 beautiful kids, you know, 22 or 24 and 21. And I was asking her, I said, when you started seeing that money coming in, you know, the 5-figure weeks, week after week after week, I said, how did that feel? And she said, freeing. She said, Scott, for the first time in my life, I didn't have to worry about money anymore. And she goes, not that money is everything, but I realized when I wasn't worrying about money, I was actually focusing on the most important things in my life were my kids. And she said, so many adults go through life worrying about money and bills and this, that they're missing those that are around them. And that's when there's strain on the relationship. And again, I'm not telling you to, you know, that money rules the world, but think about how present are you actually being?
True.
How available are you emotionally right now? And I could tell you, I was there. You know, when things were not going well, things were not going well. I was not happy in my life. I was not fulfilled. I'm telling you, when I started to really focus on myself and loving me for me and pouring that into others around me, I started to see life through a different lens. I realized that, you know, we're not on this earth forever. We don't know when we're going to go, but tomorrow is not promised. I mean, we all act like we're immortals. Like, oh, tomorrow's guaranteed. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to live forever. And you don't realize that every day that we're given is a gift. So what are you going to do to make that day memorable? What are you going to do to create some sort of compounded effect to change the legacy of your family's life forever? And it's just how I live my life now, and I don't want to stop. Once that lid is taken off of growth and entrepreneurship, there's no stopping it. You're like a runaway freight train.
It's almost like a drug.
Yeah, it's a healthy addiction. Like literally, it's like a gateway drug to wanting to become better. And when you want to become better, there's nothing you can't accomplish.
Now, I know that working and striving for those things are very important when you want to reach these goals. But what about that balance between that and home?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, it's funny, my future wife has a business called WorkLife Balance. It's a residential house cleaning business. And, you know, and the name spurred because she had no work-life balance. She was in corporate. She was managed hundreds of people and for 2 Fortune 50 companies. And She missed holidays with her family. She just was, and she wanted something that was more work-life balance. And what she taught me is that there's two types of people. There are people that work in their job and in their business, and there's people that work on their business. And they're both the same. But when you're working on your business, you're present, you're available, you have boundaries, you have dedicated blocks of time for personal and business. But when you're working in your business, you're so entrenched, you can't see the light of day. And for us, we live by time blocking. My time is the most valuable commodity. You couldn't pay me enough money to work with you at a time that I have blocked out. So we don't do anything before 10 a.m. Eastern Standard. We get up at 6. We have a 4-hour morning routine that involves taking the dogs for a walk, working out, having breakfast, having our coffee, and talking about our day. They could throw millions of dollars at me. I would not take it because my time is more valuable than that. Those are hours that I never get back. So for me, It's been a matter of finding that a balance, a harmonious balance between both of those things. And I can't begin to tell you how important and how impactful that has been for my business.
Now, I've had someone tell me their philosophy, which is not only the family time and personal time, but their greatest investment so far has been in other people in order to, I guess, to further what they're doing. Without giving, you don't seem to be really getting anything. What's your take on that?
You have to give to get. I mean, the more that you give, the more that you get. It's called the law of reciprocation. So if you are just going to take, you're never going to get to where you want to be. And for me, I lead with value. I over deliver because my goal not only is how I show up, but I want to leave people better. I want people to know that every day I show up, I control how I want them to see me. And that's the thing. How are you going to show up today? You know, and these are questions that people don't ask themselves. How do you want to be seen? And I want to be seen as a source of inspiration, as a source of motivation, as a source of belief and hope that there are other ways. And there doesn't have to be a monetary exchange to create wealth. You know, success is not, it's not seen. Success is felt. Its impact is felt. All these things are feelings. You feel successful. You feel grateful. You feel motivated. They're not objects. They're not houses and cars. All those things are great if you want them. But your cup's going to still be left unfilled. So what I can tell you is that the more that you focus on giving without expecting anything back in return, you will live a much more fulfilled life.
Okay, now that's words to live by. And so when they're at your funeral and somebody's getting up to talk about you, what do you want them to say about you?
Well, it's funny you brought that up. I have a good friend of mine, Cody Schuin, who wrote a book about this. Mm-hmm. And so he was a funeral director for 15 years. And so he lived with death. And he shared this great story, how he was running a service and hordes of people showed up for this older gentleman that passed away. I mean, hundreds of people. And everyone spoke so eloquently and beautifully about this man. So at the end, Cody goes up to the one son and he goes, "Man, your dad must have been an incredible guy." And the son said he was. And he said, "What was the best piece of advice that he gave you?" He said to me before he died, "Don't wait for your legacy to be left. Leave it while you're still living."
Oh, now that's impactful.
Yeah, so like when he said this to me, I was floored. And he follows that up with a question, more or less what you said. How do you want to be remembered? Because what he realized is how someone wants to be remembered is the exact way of how you need to start living your legacy right now.
Exactly. What I want people to think about me when I pass away is I want people to say, that was the guy that tried to make people smile every day. It's simple, but to me that's one of the most important things in my life, is to make other people smile.
That's important because you're leaving people better.
Exactly. I mean, you can't make everybody happy, but you can at least try to make them smile.
And it's not your job to make people happy either.
This is true. This is true. And so when you get your day started, do you have like a time of meditation and mantras and things like that? Because I know a lot of people that's a big part of their day.
Yeah, 100%. So I have a gratitude journal that sits on my nightstand, and I write in it every day, the things that I'm grateful for. And then I always write down at the end of the day one great thing that happened from that day.
Mm-hmm.
Every night before I go to bed, Nancy and I, my fiance, we've been doing this for the last year and a half. We listen to a guided meditation for prosperity and abundance to obviously make sure our subconscious is programmed the right way. And I attribute our personal and professional success due to these programming of abundant thinking and prosperous thinking that we have every single night before we go to sleep, because what you think about most often is what you become. And I really try to be very mindful and very careful of what flows between the 6 inches between my ears.
Well, this world has got so much negativity to it seems, in the news and social media, that kind of thing. It's always something negative, either talking about politics or religion or whatever. And of course, that's one of the things that I'm trying to steer totally away from, because it's depressing.
Yeah.
With that in mind, how do you keep yourself from being bombarded and your mind thinking those negative thoughts when you're constantly taking that in all the time?
It's repetition. So I always go back to what I learned when I was in the fitness industry, that you don't build a body overnight. You don't go to the gym once and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just not how it happens. You have to create a daily habit. You have to be consistent. It's the compounded effect. Small daily actions and habits create that compounded effect. Your mindset is the same thing. When you become more mindful, when you become more present, when you start living a more positive and inspired life, it still needs to be practiced every single day. That's why I always practice gratitude every day, because physiologically, it has been scientifically proven that when you are practicing the act of gratitude, you cannot feel any other feeling than that. So when you're thinking about what I'm grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
you can't feel sad, you can't feel depressed, you can't feel hatred or angry. Because when you're thinking about what am I grateful for, you're thinking positive. So when you can reinforce and you can work that muscle, don't forget your brain is a muscle. Everything that you do, your thoughts are a muscle. It's just like the gym. It takes daily habits every single day to create that compounded effect, whether it's a thought, a feeling, or an action.
It's almost like you're reading me the book of the Law of Attraction.
Yeah, it's the truth.
Which I absolutely love that book. I probably need to live it a lot better than what I have been, but there's no excuse.
Practice makes practice. Practice makes practice.
Exactly. And so you're a motivational speaker.
Yeah, I do speaking. Yep.
And you're an author as well.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your book.
So the first book was I released it. Actually, it was a challenge by one of my connections and someone that followed me on social media. I was on Periscope, which still exists, but I don't use anymore. It was through Twitter. And I said, hey, who's got a challenge for me? What do they want me to do that I haven't done yet? And this one person said, write a book. And I said, okay. So it took me a year, and I self-published my first book called Good Guys Always Win. And it was just about my journey, where I was at that time, everything that I had to go through and overcome to start living an ideal life. The second book, which I released last year, which became a #1 bestseller on Amazon, is a marketing book, because I basically wanted to create a way for people to learn from me and have an actionable game plan of what I did to succeed. So I mapped it out, put it in a book form, gave people some tangible and actionable takeaways at the end of each chapter. And it's called the LinkedIn Book for Network Marketing. And it's a step-by-step guide to teaching people how to genuinely and authentically use the platform of LinkedIn to market themselves, build their brand, businesses, and create more impact. And my third book, which also hit #1 bestseller on Amazon just about a week and a half ago, is called The Network Marketing Academy, which is basically a picture book for adults. So it's not one of those wordy, lengthy books. It is 160 pages, but it's a lot of PDFs. It's a lot of accountability exercises. And I even give everyone that gets a copy of it, you download a free workbook that you can print out. And there's an accountability workbook that holds you accountable as you read the book to put things in action so you can move that needle forward. And, every book got better, and I plan on releasing another one in the next few months, and just constantly moving forward to produce as many things as I can to help as many people as I can.
Now, when we get at the end of the show, if we can get some links and stuff to give out to everyone, and also if maybe you could forward those to me, that we can put it on our social media.
Absolutely. Be happy to.
That would be awesome. Now, I don't want you to give everything away, because of course you got to make some money, but can you kind of give a generic idea of the marketing part of it?
Yeah, so I always talk about the layer cake of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is broken down into 4 different parts. The first layer is your profile, and if people go to my website, scottaaron.net, there's actually a tab that says free infographic, and you can download. It's a 6 steps to perfecting your profile, because basically what people are doing right now on LinkedIn is they're using it like a search engine. So people are going on there and searching for people, whether it's they're looking for speakers or they're looking to hire a coach. So if your profile is not filled out the right way from top to bottom, you're basically invisible. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that everything is clear. There's keywords that people really know exactly what you do, how you do it, and why you do it, and for who you do it for. So bringing that into the About Me section, the Experience section, making sure that everything is written out really nice and neat. And obviously that's why I do that free download, to make it easier for people. So that's the first layer. The second layer is building your network. And this is the most important part in getting started, because everyone has an ideal market. Everyone has a certain kind of client or customer or someone that they're looking to attract. So when you can figure out who your avatar is, so using myself as an example, maybe the old me, my avatar were gym owners, personal trainers, and nutritionists. So I would make sure that I would search and connect using the search engine. And I would invite people in that would most likely want to accept and engage with me, which is the business version of myself. Too often people are connecting with just anyone with a pulse, but you have to be very specific with who you want to connect with. So when you break down that niche, that's where you can obviously have the most impact. So making sure that you connect with the right people is number 2. Number 3 is messaging people. And I think this is where everything falls to the wayside, because if anyone has ever spent any time on LinkedIn, I don't think anyone has not been a victim yet of someone that has sent them some 18-paragraph long drunkalog trying to sell them and pitch them on their product and their service, and you could hire me. And that is the absolute wrong way to use LinkedIn. So I created something called the Magic Formula, which basically breaks down messaging someone in 3 simple steps. Number 1, stating the person's name. Hey, Kyle, great to be connected to you. Number 2, letting the person know why you're reaching out without selling or pitching them. I saw you also have a podcast, as do I. Would love to hear more about it, share more about mine to see how we can best support each other here on LinkedIn. So I didn't try to pitch them. I didn't try to sell them. All I did was do two things. Number one, I made the connection of the dots of why I connected with Kyle. We both have podcasts. It just makes sense. But also, I use the word support, not sell. I want to support him in what he's doing, which in turn, I want him to support me in what I'm doing. Then the third part is you finish with something called a CTA, a call to action. You have to ask in order to get. So if you don't ask a question, you're not going to get an answer. You have to ASK to GET. So I'm not going to make a statement, Kyle, let me know when's good to talk. I've never asked, so he's never going to tell me. But if I simply finish with, Kyle, do you have any time this week or next week for a call? I've stated his name, reason for reaching out, and then a specific call to action to get him on the phone. Now, the fourth and final layer is the social media aspect. My simple advice to everybody on LinkedIn, if you're going to produce content, one piece of content a day. I don't care if it's a video, an article, or a post. Put out one piece of content a day. Now you may say, well, what the hell do I post? Two things. Every post should be something educational or number two, informative. Don't post things that you want to post because it's what you want to say. Mm-hmm. Post things that the audience and network that you've been building wants to hear. You have to put yourself in the shoes of your audience. If you were them, what would you want to hear? And then all you have to do is take that information, do a video, write a post, write an article, and always do things from the perspective of the person that needs it most. So those are the four basic layers to LinkedIn.
Okay, so now you're going to have to help me with that because, of course, tomorrow I will be posting about you. And so if you can give me a general idea of what would be the best for my post tomorrow, I'm not going to ask you to do that now, but I mean, if you can help me with that, that would be awesome.
Oh, just really easy. You can write a post on the power of connection and collaboration. I started a podcast 2 years ago, and I've been meeting all these great people, the main actor from Highlander and all these, and just realize that, connection is the gateway to having more impact, as it was connecting with my latest guest last night, Scott Aaron, and we had a great interview, and, he's considered one of the best to teach LinkedIn, and this is what connecting does. It allows you to connect with more people so you can impact more lives, and that's what it's all about. So coming up with something like that.
Okay, I got you. I was hoping you'd write it for me, actually.
I can't do everything.
Oh, darn it.
Yeah.
And so you're a motivational speaker, as we said before. Where all do you get to do your speaking?
I mean, when we were allowed to speak, I had some speaking gigs actually booked all over the country. I was to be speaking later this year in California, Arizona, New York, and 2 events in Canada, but they've since all been put on the back burner. So I do a lot of online events, a lot of summits, but I'm very present on social media and do trainings all the time. So also I have a podcast so people kind of follow along everything that I'm doing.
Now, do you have advice on social media? Because I'm not like the best at it.
The best thing about social media right now, if I was to give someone one piece of advice about social media, it would be to go all in with video content. That, whether it's a Facebook Live, an Instagram video, a LinkedIn video, people are seeking two things right now. They're seeking connection and community now more than ever. And the best way to do that is to connect with people through video where they can see you, hear you, and feel you.
Okay. I've been going on about that all wrong. I mean, I've just learned how to do all those cool things, and when you go to my story, on Instagram, and I had somebody a lot younger than me show me how to do all that stuff, and I thought I was doing great, and I mean it's gotten
that's
better.
good. That's good. It's important to be omnipresent on social media, but what people are craving right now is feeling connected to someone, and the best way to do that, the most impactful way to do that, is through voice and through video.
Okay, so I'm probably gonna start doing that then. And I used to do motivational. Well, I don't want to put it this. I would come up with something to give somebody inspiration every morning when I was on Instagram. So 30-second video, something to help them out.
Yeah.
Stuff that came from the law of attraction, The Secret, and it got me a few people, but it wasn't the numbers that I was looking for. I mean, I'm not like terrible, but by standards of most people, I mean, I've got 3,000 something followers on my Instagram. Okay, but heck, I can't even do the swipe up thing until I hit 10,000.
Yeah, well, just Kyle, just remember, numbers don't matter. We bring meaning to that. The followers don't matter, the likes, the comments, all that, the views, it doesn't matter. We bring meaning to that. So when you start pretending that none of those things exist, you'll never pay attention to them.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, and don't forget, every master was once a disaster.
True.
So we're all starting in the same place. No one starts and then they have, millions of views. Everybody's got to be on their own journey. You can't. Arnold Schwarzenegger actually says it best. You can't climb the ladders of success with both hands in your pockets.
Very good advice, actually. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, if anybody's listening to that, put that in the bank. Right?
Yeah.
So what else have you got going on right now?
Just working on some new courses and, doing a lot of podcasts and still growing my coaching practice in the midst of finishing up a fourth book, which should be coming out in the next couple months. But just really focused on just showing up every day, leading with value, and leaving people better. That's literally what my job is, to show up the way that I want to be seen and give people hope and keep moving them forward.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a personal question now. You said that the sky's the limit, right? What was it like going from Eagles country to the Giants country?
The good thing is I didn't move too far into Jersey, so it's still considered Eagles country. So I'm only about 30 minutes over the bridge. So we're South Jersey. So I am still much closer to the link that I am, Giant Stadium.
So when are you going to leave the dark side and come to the light and be a Cowboys fan?
Oh man, I think honestly that's never going to happen, but it's always wishful thinking. So I am very happy with bleeding green for the rest of my life and just keeping it just like that.
No, well, you're an all right guy anyway.
I appreciate that. You know what? Sports to me are it's purely entertainment. When you're in your teens and 20s, you have that deep hatred for Cowboys fans, but I'm more empathetic and sympathetic to what they're going through because obviously we've won a Super Bowl more recently than them. But it's all entertainment. I remember when the Eagles would lose or something like that happened, I couldn't watch Sports Center. I couldn't pick up a newspaper. And I'm like, this is entertainment. It's a privilege to be able to watch a team, whether they win or lose. So I have a much different relationship. Do I want them to win? Am I upset when they lose? Yes, but for, I would say, a fraction of the way that I used to be.
Yeah. Well, it seems like some people lose friends over silly stuff like that. In the long run, what does it really matter?
It's entertainment.
It's entertainment, and it seems like it's getting more fake every day anyway. So
yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah,
but I have to throw in something a little funny to talk about.
Oh,
right?
I had someone ask me, they're like, baby wipes or toilet paper? Oh no, they said they said toilet paper over or under, and I said neither, baby wipes. And she goes, what? And I'm like, if you've never used baby wipes, you need to try it, and then you'll understand why I answered that.
Yeah, you get to be my age, it's a lot easier to use that.
I think at any age it becomes easier.
But don't flush it down the toilet,
No,
people.
no, do not. And especially, we moved into a new home. We have septic, so nothing goes down those toilets.
No, if it hasn't come out of your body, it should not go in there.
It goes in the trash can.
Actually, in a little bit of advice, and I know this is off subject, but if you're on a lot of medications, you have to really take care of your septic system because it will kill the bacteria that's in your septic system.
Well, the good thing is we're not, so I'm glad that we have our health in that aspect. But it's always good to remember that in case it does something happen.
Yeah. So back on track again.
Yeah.
You're a podcaster as well.
Yep, I have a top podcast in the entrepreneurship realm. It's called Network Marketing Made Simple. It actually last week just hit 50,000 downloads, so just really stoked about that. Yeah, launched it just about a year ago, so it's another passion project of mine. Love it, and looking to continue to grow it.
Now, did you grow it through LinkedIn?
No, actually, it was initially my fiance and I wanted to start our own podcast called Entrepreneurs in the Trenches, and it was too much work. And then I remember I was actually watching a Gary Vee video on YouTube, and he mentioned this app called Anchor, where it's an app you download on your phone and you could start your own podcast. Mm-hmm. So I downloaded it, and I'm like, holy shit, this is really easy. And I basically started my own podcast from my phone, and I'm now on 150 episodes and 50,000 downloads, and it's now listened to in over 83 countries around the world.
Oh, sweet. Now, I use Buzzsprout myself, and it's pretty much like the same kind of deal. They distribute it out to like Stitcher and iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts,
iTunes, yeah,
iTunes, all that kind of stuff. So that's very convenient. I mean, the hardest part of it is just starting your account with each one of them. Yep. After that, it does it all for you.
Yeah.
But how do you actually build on that? I mean, what's the marketing strategy there?
I really didn't have one. Whenever I have an episode come out, I mean, obviously I send an email out to my list as it grows. But it's funny because I remember when I first started the podcast, I'm like, oh my God, 10 people listened. And then I'm like, oh my God, 50 people, 100 people, 150, 250. So it continues to grow, and I'm getting close to 500 to 700 downloads a week now, which is amazing. And it's just consistency. I've been releasing 2 episodes a week since November of 2018. So consistency will win in everything. And, I'm always putting it out on social media. I always let my Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn followers know a new episode dropped, listen to it here. So I keep it in front of people's faces all the time.
I've kind of started doing that to where even the stuff that I've already put out, say a month ago, I'll come back and revisit it, and I'll just put the link up on our social media. Hey, this is the YouTube video. And I have noticed that YouTube is slowly starting to build. I mean, the new network we just started is only 2 months old. And I'm seeing some of our people are getting like 100 views and stuff. And I honestly didn't expect it to get that high this quick. I would like to see the numbers get higher, of course, but I mean, so it's just a matter of getting the content out there, and then getting on your social media.
Being omnipresent, being visible, and being in front of people's faces. It's a very crowded environment out there, so anything that you can do to make yourself more visible is going to draw more eyeballs on what you're doing, which is going to gain a following organically.
Yeah, I know whenever I first started doing podcasting, as I told you before, I have a paranormal show. And it's got, it's a small following, but they're very loyal to us. And I started out, I was just basically interviewing anybody that had a paranormal team. And then slowly started getting people from TV shows. My first celebrity, I guess you'd say in the paranormal world, was Marcus Harvey from the Ghost Brothers, which was like I was on cloud 9.
Yeah.
Okay, and now I'm starting to get the guys from Ghost Hunters on the show.
Awesome.
And that's been a journey. But I do know, and I'm sure you probably have the same advice. It's just a matter of getting on their social media and asking them.
Asking to get. That's all you have to ask. I mean, you know, how do you think I get speaking gigs? I ask if, they need a speaker. It's the same thing. If you wait for things to happen, you're going to be waiting at a bus stop where there is no bus on that route anymore. You need to take action to create action.
And anybody that's listening to this, matchmaker.fm.
Unbelievable platform. Like, I can't thank those guys enough. I mean, I think I've been on 40 podcasts in the last 3.5 weeks. It's
Wow.
been insane. I mean, it's Tinder for podcasters. Like, that's the best way to describe it. It's like, it's unbelievable the incredible people you end up meeting on that platform. So any podcaster, yeah, app.matchmaker.fm. Check it out. It's free, and get in while you can, because honestly, it's going to be a subscription at some point, and I will gladly pay whatever it is, but take advantage of it while you can.
Oh, it's definitely worth it, because I just happened to be Googling one day and I'm like, okay, how do I get celebrities or other people to be on my podcast? And one of the things that popped up was matchmaker.fm. And I'm like, okay, I'm not looking for a date. I'm looking for somebody to be on my podcast.
Yep.
And I started reading it, and it says, you want to be on a podcast, or you want people to be on your podcast, this is where you meet up. Hey, I'm going to try it out. I filled out a little quick, profile, and the same day, I'm getting emails from people.
Yep.
I'd love to be on your show.
Yep.
Well, I'd love to have you on my show.
Yeah.
Because I'm meeting people like you that have great stories and have actually something interesting to say. And so, meeting authors and other podcasters, people that are on television, people that are in radio. And so, yeah, if you want to do a podcast show, this is a good way to get started.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's the power of connection. If that gentleman never created that app, I mean, I would never be here today, and we would have never met. So there's a reason behind everything, and every connection has a purpose, and people need to do more of it.
Well, exactly. And in this world, there's too many things out there that's trying to separate us. I'm glad to see that there's certain things like this app that are trying to bring people together.
Absolutely.
And communication. People need to sit down and learn how to talk again.
Yeah.
Instead of cussing each other out on Facebook because you like this candidate and you don't like this candidate, and all of a sudden it's a war, and I'm like, oh my God, I was getting sucked up in that. I'll be honest with you, and I had to get away from it because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy, and like you were saying before, that negativity, you got to get that negativity out. And so, yeah. So, if you had to explain it, how would you explain it?
Explain.
Like getting people together to actually communicate again.
I mean, there's no other, the best building block, the best tool, the best resource for building relationships and building businesses is connecting. You know what? Like, together is better, as Simon Sinek says. We are, as a species, we are meant to be surrounded by each other. We're not meant to be alone. And I can't tell you guys right now, while you guys are, quarantined and you're with your family and you can't see your friends, find other ways to communicate. I'm Jewish by faith, and it was Passover about a week ago, and my grandmother is still with us. She's 93, and this is killing her because she can't see her kids, she can't see her grandkids, she can't see her great grandkids. So I said, you know what, I'm going to put together a Zoom, and I'm going to get the family together. And I had an online Seder, so my grandmother was able to see everyone. So and she called me the next day, like literally in tears. She goes, you have no idea how happy that made me to see everybody. So my cousins from Maryland were on there, and, because people normally, and even my cousin emailed me and she said, listen, thank you so much for doing that. Jimmy and I can never come up because, It's always during the middle of the week, but it was so great seeing everybody. So there are always ways. Connection is everything. And, going through life by yourself is not the way to go. So really take that extra effort and go that extra mile to really seek out connecting with people more than ever right now. People are seeking two things right now, more than anything being quarantined. They're seeking community and they're seeking connection. So let's do our best and let's do our part to give everybody what they really want, which is to feel accepted, to feel loved, to be empathetic, to be sympathetic, all of those things.
Right. And it's time to put these differences apart.
Yes.
There's no sense in it. There's already enough out there trying to separate us. The video games and all that stuff. It seems to be making families not communicate.
Just distractions.
This stinking cell phone.
Yeah.
We have a rule. When we go out to eat somewhere or we're sitting around, this thing needs to be put away.
Oh yeah, we either leave it in our car or it stays in our pocket, and that's it. So that's what we live by too.
And I used to get in the bad habit. As soon as I got home from work, I would sit on the couch and wait for supper, and I'd be playing those stupid little games all the time. Yep. I finally got rid of them. It's like they're not doing me any good.
Yeah.
All it's doing is taking time away from my family.
Exactly.
One thing we found is games and puzzles seem to be bringing us back together too.
We love board games. And, I play that with my fiance's family all the time. We like Cards Against Humanity a lot. That's the game.
I love that.
Yeah, we play that game a lot.
I want the Star Wars edition.
Oh, there's a Star Wars edition?
Yes, they just put it out on social media that there is a Star Wars edition.
I'm gonna check that out. That would be kind of fun.
And if they have one for The Office, I want that too.
Yeah, we've been binging on that too a little bit, just getting reconnected to that. Such a great show.
So any other advice that you have for us?
Yeah, the two things that I always leave people with, whether I'm speaking or whether I'm doing an online presentation, is that your failures will always open the doors to your successes. So don't be afraid of failure. Enjoy it, because success comes from it. And just remember that there are millions upon millions upon millions of ways of how to succeed, and there's only truly one way to fail, and that's to quit. If you do not quit, you will find a way to succeed.
And before we leave, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and your books and all these things.
Yeah, if you just go to my website, www.scottaaron.net, you can purchase both of my books right off of my website. Takes you right to Amazon.com. You can listen to my podcast on there. It's got all my services, and on social media, you can connect with me on Facebook and LinkedIn under Scott Aaron, or on Instagram at Scott Aaron LinkedIn, and would love to connect with you.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a real pleasure.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, I appreciate you having me, and obviously it was a privilege and an honor, and just grateful to connect with you.
Well, I definitely walk away from this with some great knowledge.
Awesome.
And so you got somebody that's going to be buying your book.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And please tune in. We've got more people coming on just like Scott that have great things to share. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network and on Instagram at The Vibes Broadcast.